Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a conundrum. The conundrum arises in the form of this rather interesting box featuring Paul Paray and the Detroit Symphony. First of all, there is the cover. Note the cover. A terribly flattering photo of Maestro Paray looking like a crazy French person fresh from his rubber room. I mean, my God, holy cow. Anyway, that's Paul Paray. Now, as you know, Paul Paray is known today primarily for the fabulous series of recordings that he made with Mercury Living Presence with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra in the 1950s and early 60s. And they are marvelous, of mostly French repertoire, but also some really amazing other stuff. I mean, a great Sibelius too, and there's Dvorak New World Symphony, and there's a Rachmaninoff too, none of which are in here. But the Schumann Symphony Cycle is in here. This is a 10 CD box that advertises itself as 14 original albums on 10 CDs. And the label is something called Intense Media, which is based in Germany. And some of you, back in the days of like LPs, and not LPs, I mean like record stores, those things, the places that sold this stuff, they were like large physical structures that you could find on the street, and you would walk through the door, and within would be all kinds of recorded things, and you could buy them there. It was a different era. And these boxes were there. There were these odd boxes that had, strange names like Kusevitsky, Maestro, Incontrovertible, and I don't know. They were very odd. And it was historical stuff that was gotten from anywhere. And as more things have fallen into the public domain, more of these boxes seem to be possible. But these are unquestionably Mercury Living Presence recordings. There is no mention anywhere of a licensing agreement. There is no mention anywhere of Mercury Living Presence. There is no booklet. The 10 CDs sell for $20 or thereabouts. They're an incredible steal, and steal may be the operative term here. I really don't know. The sound isn't bad. The transfers seem to have been made from LPs, not from Mercury transfers, because the Mercury Living Presence transfers are certainly under copyright to Universal, who tends to be terribly protective of its copyright. The LPs, on the other hand, may be in the public domain if you can get a good well-preserved exemplar. I don't know. I don't know what the technical details are. I'm very, very curious to find out. Now, I'm going to tell you what's in the box. The performances are all marvelous. As I said, it's $20. If it's public domain, there's nothing illegal about it, but you should know what you're getting. I did some spot comparisons between these, for example, the Symphonie Fantastique and the actual Mercury Living Presence transfer, and also some of the other pieces with this 5 CD Mercury set of Paul Paray stuff. And the sonics are uniformly duller, basically, here. But the actual sound on those LPs was so good, I mean, really just marvelously vivid, that it's not to complain about. I mean, if you heard this and didn't know that the Mercury Living Presence remastering that Wilma Cozart-Fine did a few decades back, if you didn't know those existed, you would think this sounds perfectly fine for its era. I mean, there's no crackle and snap from LP surfaces. The sound is smooth and decent, and the performances are brilliant. So I have no idea what is really going on here with these boxes. And there are a bunch of them. There's an Igor Markevich box, there's an Erich Leinsdorf box, and I'm going to talk about those too, because I'm first of all, I like the stuff that's in them, but second of all, I'm just incredibly puzzled as to what the sources of this stuff is, and how intensemedia.de is doing this stuff. I mean, it's actually a nice box. It's a sturdy box. It opens from the bottom. Whoop! It's kind of like the back of a Volkswagen. You know what I mean? It has that sort of clamshell quality. And so we'll see what's in here. And then you could decide if you want it or not for $20. It certainly may be worth it because the music, like I said, is marvelous. So, I just love this photo. This photo is oh my gosh. It's like, okay, now you can go back to your rubber room, Maestro Paray. It's lovely, isn't it? All right, so you get Symphonie Fantastique and the Franck D minor on disc 1. And you'll notice also when they say 14 albums on 10 CDs, not 14 CDs. You see, I think they're being a little cagey, suggesting that this comes from like album land rather than that's LP land rather than CD land. I don't know. It's odd. Okay, Symphonie Fantastique and Franck D minor on disc 1. On disc 2, you get a dropped CD. This is Debussy. You get La Mer, the prelude to something, the Afternoon of a Faun. You get, of course, what else would it be? You get Iberia, and you get the Nocturnes, all on one handy CD. On disc 3, we get, let's see, Ravel, Bolero, Valse Noble et Sentimentale, Daphnis and Chloe Suite No. 2, La Valse, Operetta del Gracioso, and Rhapsody Espagnole. These are actually rather more intelligently coupled than the original Mercury Presence CDs. They really are. For example, the Ravel stuff I have here, you've got like that same Ravel stuff, some of it, not all of it, because it was spread out over more than one disc, and Iber's Escale is thrown in the middle of that somewhere, and that's not just Ravel. So, I mean, these are smart couplings. Then we have, let's see, here's more Ravel, the Pavane for a Dead Princess, Mother Goose Suite, Le Tombeau de Couperin. There's a lot of stuff on here. Debussy's Petite Suite, Massenet's, let's see, Overture to Phèdre. Yes, Phèdre. And Adolphe Adam, the Overture to, what is this one? Is this Fra Diavolo? Boy, this is dark. Don't you? I love it when they have black things with dark red type. See, there it is. It's so hard to read. Goodness gracious. Oh, Si J'étais Roi, that's what it is. And Harold's Zampa and Meyerbeer's Coronation March from Le Prophète. La Prophète, whatever it is. Then for this one, this is disc 5. We're already halfway through. We get the Saint-Saëns Third Symphony, Samson, Delilah Bacchanal, Danse Macabre, March Militaire Français, and Auber's Le Diamant de la Couronne, the Crown of Diamonds, the Offenbach's Overture to La Belle Hélène, and Orpheus in the Underworld. Can. Ooh, the Can. Isn't that fun? Let's see, disc number 6. This is all the usual Bizet stuff. The 2 L'Arlésienne suites, the Carmen suite. Actually, it's an arrangement of the 2 Carmen suites. That is, it's not all the numbers. It's like 5 or 6 numbers from it. And we get the Danse Bohème from, what's that, for the Pearl Fishers or something like that. And La Patrie, the Overture, which is kind of a rarity. And let's see, on disc 7, the Chabrier disc. This is one of the great Chabrier discs. It's just fantastic. And like I said, España doesn't glitter quite the way it does on the Mercury Living Presence CDs, but it's one hell of a performance. And then there's let's see, Boieldieu, La Dame Blanche, and Ambroise Thomas, Raymond, and let's see, Mignon, the Prelude and Gavotte. I mean, look at all that stuff. It's simply amazing. Disc number 8, Chausson Symphony. Yes, that's a lovely work. Lalo's Namuna, Suite number 1. Le Roi 10 Overture. More Offenbach, The Tales of Hoffmann. It says Suite. Who knows what that is? It's just a suite. And let's see, the Gounod Ballet, Faust Ballet, just the Valse from Act 2. Odd little bits. Remember there were some of those, I think actually those things are on this other Mercury Living Presence set of, French bonbons. They are definitely bon. And the playing is also bon, hence bonbon, you see. What's this thing? Oh, the Schumann cycle. Yeah, the Schumann cycle. With the 4th is in sort of dim mono, but the other ones were all marvelous. And you get the Manfred Overture. These are terrific Schumann performances, which I enjoy enormously because they're quick and incisive and so not German sounding. Just great fun. Anyway, and since Germany didn't exist when Schumann wrote them, we may insist that Paray's approach is even more authentic than the authenticity people and the later German people. So there. Anyway, so here's the box. Now, let's be sensible here. If Universal had half a brain, and I do ask Australian Eloquence, which has an enormous brain, to consider this. You know, what happened with Mercury Living Presence was all of these individual CDs were issued, and they were marvelous, and we all loved them and raved about them, and it was exciting and terrific. And Wilma Cozart-Fine did an incredible job with remastering. And then they packaged some of these things in these 5 CD boxes, and there were a few of them, but not too many, like 3 or 4. This was the Paul Paray one. Then they put out 3 big jumbo boxes with all the Mercury Living Presence stuff, and then it all disappeared. Some of it's still floating around. Some of it may have been licensed or reused in other contexts, in other big box packaging. If they had a brain, they would do something along the lines of this, only smarter. In other words, take all the Paul Paray stuff, right, and put it in one box. Take all the Frederick Fennell stuff, put it in another box. Take all the Dorati stuff, put it in the third box. Just do them by artists. Take Byron Janis, the pianist. Take all of these people that they had recordings and made marvelous recordings and reorganize them, put them together, reissue them sensibly, and just let people do what people do, which is acquire them, especially for people who missed the Mercury big boxes. Because, I know from doing these talks, there are so many of you who are just getting into classical music, who are using this fabulous new video medium that I had no idea existed, and no idea that you people were out there to try and enhance your classical music collections, and you don't know these classic recordings. And frankly, you have a right to hear them in the best possible sound, beautifully packaged and issued by the original labels, which of course probably will never happen now that everything is going digital and downloadable anyway, although you never know, because they could be reissued as a sort of luxury product. It would be a little pricier, but still very, very nice, and it would be delightful to have them. But in the meantime, because we're just all, pissing in the breeze, as they say, hoping for these things for the most part, we do have this box from Intense Media. And the performances are indeed intense. And the sound, if it isn't as brilliant as it later became, well, I'm not an audiophile, so that doesn't bother me terribly. I care about the performance and decent sound. That is, sound that's good enough so that you can enjoy it and nothing gets in the way of you and what the composer wrote and what the scoring is, because this French music, of course, is very brilliantly orchestrated for the most part. So you've got to be able to hear everything. And you do. You really do hear. So what can I tell you? For $20, it's a great deal. Is it the best version of the stuff you can get? Not really. Should you hear Paul Paray, the Detroit Symphony, this repertoire? Absolutely, you should. And so it's up to you. It's a pretty easy call if you're on a budget, but it's because the major labels, as they're called, have treated their catalog with such disdain and such lack of intelligence and forethought that things like this are even possible. And as time goes on, the amount of material that's in the public domain that anybody can seize and use for their own purposes only becomes larger and larger. So who knows what to expect in the future. This is the wild rodeo, which is the world of classical music recordings. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you, and take care.